There's a moment in every human being's journey when something mysterious begins to happen, a subtle, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly real change. It's as if the soul begins to whisper ancient secrets, preparing for a great crossing. It's not about fear or despair, but about a silent call echoing from the depths of being. Edgar Cayce revealed that, before the final departure, the spirit sends coded messages through signs that few can interpret. Today you will discover 9 mysterious signs that indicate your soul may be preparing to return to its divine origin. Pay attention to every word, because perhaps this video has been placed in your path right now for a reason that transcends chance. Have you ever noticed that there are days when the noise of the world simply ceases to make sense? The empty conversations, the endless arguments about things that don't matter, the constant noise of social media, all of that begins to seem distant, as if it were on the other side of a thick pane of glass. That's exactly what happens when the soul begins its process of disconnection from earthly density. Edgar Cayce described this phenomenon as the silence of the spirit, a sacred state in which consciousness begins to withdraw inward, seeking to hear only the voice of divinity. The person experiencing this feels a natural decrease in the desire to speak of trivialities. Words become scarcer, more thoughtful, more profound. There is a change in the quality of presence, as if each moment deserves to be lived to its fullest without the interference of mental noise. This silence is neither loneliness nor depression. It is vibrational preparation. It is the soul adjusting its frequency for what is to come. Imagine a musician tuning their instrument before a big performance. That is exactly what happens on the spiritual plane. The being begins to vibrate at a higher octave, where silence is not absence but full presence. It is in silence that God speaks loudest. It is in silence that the soul can hear the instructions for the final journey. Many people around might interpret this as withdrawal or sadness, but it is actually a sacred movement of introspection. The soul is rehearsing the peace that awaits it on the other side of the veil. It is getting used to the vibration of the home it left so long ago. And in this process, unnecessary words simply fall away, like dry leaves from a tree preparing for winter, knowing that spring will come in another dimension. If you have been feeling this growing need for silence, to be with yourself, to observe instead of participating in the chaos, know that your soul is speaking to you. It is telling you that there is something greater waiting, something that requires you to detach yourself from the external noise to hear the eternal melody that has always been playing within you. During sleep, when the conscious mind finally rests, the soul gains the freedom to travel. And it is precisely in this state that the deepest messages reach us. As the transition approaches, the nature of dreams changes completely. They cease to be confused fragments of the day and transform into real visits to other planes of existence. People nearing death report dreaming of loved ones who have passed away. But these are not ordinary dreams. In them, there are real embraces, lucid conversations, clear messages. The deceased appear young, radiant, enveloped in light. They come with a specific purpose: to prepare the one who is arriving, to show that there is nothing to fear, that on the other side there is love, peace, and reunion. Edgar Cayce explained that these dreams are dimensional portals. The soul, still bound to the body, begins to make nocturnal journeys to the spiritual plane to recognize the path it will soon consciously travel. It's like a student visiting university before the first day of class. Everything becomes familiar. The fear of the unknown dissolves in the face of direct experience. Besides encounters with the deceased, visions of luminous gardens, crystalline waters, and golden portals opening onto indescribable landscapes emerge. There is a feeling of being guided, led by invisible hands through sacred places. Some dream that they are flying, traversing tunnels of light, or simply floating in a state of absolute bliss. These are not random dreams. They are memories of the future, impressions of destiny that the soul has already begun to touch. What's most striking is that these dreams bring a peace that remains after waking up. The person wakes up different, transformed. There's an inexplicable certainty that death is not the end, but merely a passage. Fears dissolve, anxieties about what comes next simply disappear, replaced by a serene confidence that everything will be all right. Cayce taught that we should pay attention to our dreams, especially when they become vivid and laden with spiritual symbolism. They are direct messages from our own soul, trying to prepare us, comfort us, and remind us of who we truly are. If your dreams have changed, If you have encountered people who have passed away, if you have seen places of indescribable beauty, understand that your soul is already recognizing the path back home. Before we continue, I need to know, have you ever dreamed about someone who passed away and felt it was more than just a dream? Share your experience in the comments, because your story might bring comfort to someone going through this right now. And if this video is touching your heart, please like it so more people can receive these messages. The physical temple we have inhabited for decades is beginning to show clear signs that its mission is coming to an end. We are not talking only about illness or old age, but about something deeper, a conscious detachment of the soul from the material body. It is as if the spirit begins to slowly withdraw its vital energy, preparing to depart. The first signs are usually subtle. Appetite naturally decreases, not because of illness, but because the soul simply loses interest in material sustenance. Food, which once brought pleasure, becomes secondary, almost unnecessary. There is a silent understanding that the body will no longer need to be fed for a long time. Edgar Cayce explained that this happens because vital energy is being redirected from the lower chakras to the higher ones, preparing consciousness to operate at higher frequencies. Sleep transforms. The person begins to sleep more, but it's not ordinary sleep. It's a state between sleep and trance, where the soul spends increasingly more time outside the body, becoming accustomed to the feeling of freedom that will come. During these periods, there may be an appearance of profound tiredness, but in reality, it is a process of dimensional adjustment. The spirit is learning to function without the physical anchor. There is also an inexplicable tiredness that has no apparent medical cause. It is not the result of physical exertion or lack of rest. It is the weariness of the soul that has carried the weight of matter for so long and is now preparing to let go of this burden. It is the natural exhaustion of someone completing a long and challenging cycle. The body knows, at a deep cellular level, that its journey is ending and begins to relax, to surrender to the natural process of transition. Bodily functions gradually slow down. Metabolism changes, body temperature may fluctuate, and there are moments of mental confusion that are actually shifts in consciousness between dimensions. The person may seem to be here, but part of them is already elsewhere, observing everything from an expanded perspective. It is not a loss of lucidity, but an expansion of perception. Cayce described this process as the gradual withdrawal of vital force from the 7 energy centers of the body. First, the spirit disconnects from basic material concerns, then from dense emotions, until finally it remains anchored only in the heart and crown center, the points of connection with the divine. It is a natural, sacred process that should not be feared but understood as part of the return to the origin. If you or someone you love is experiencing these physical changes without a clear medical explanation, know that it may be the soul signaling that it is preparing for a great journey. This is not a reason for panic, but for love, care, and a deep understanding of the mystery that is life and death. An extraordinary phenomenon occurs with memory when the soul prepares to depart. There is a complete reorganization of the archive of lived experiences. It is as if the spirit begins to perform a final sorting, separating what truly matters from what was merely noise. Painful memories, resentments, grievances, and even material achievements begin to lose sharpness, while specific memories return with impressive clarity. Childhood returns in full force. Details forgotten for decades resurface vividly. The smell of grandparents' house, the sensation of running barefoot on the grass, the taste of a specific candy, the voice of a loved one singing a song. Edgar Cayce explained that this happens because the soul is returning to its original state of innocence, purifying itself of all the layers of conditioning it has accumulated throughout earthly life. The memories that remain vivid have something in common. They are moments of genuine love, the day someone kindly reached out, the hug that healed an invisible wound, the forgiveness that freed the heart, the laughter shared with a true friend, the compassionate gaze of a stranger. These moments shine in memory like stars in the night sky because they are made of the only substance that pierces the veil, love. On the other hand, important discussions, professional achievements, material accumulations, social successes, all of that simply dissolves into memory. Not because they weren't important in their time, but because the soul now sees through the illusion of the temporal personality. It recognizes that it came to Earth to learn to love, and only the lessons of love have eternal value. Everything else was just scenery, context, opportunities to practice the essence. There is also a spontaneous movement toward forgiveness. People who have harbored resentment for years suddenly feel an urgent need to forgive or ask for forgiveness, not out of moral obligation, but because the soul knows it cannot carry these burdens to the other side. Forgiveness becomes not only desirable but necessary. It is the final cleansing, the release of the last chains that still bind the spirit to earthly density. Cayce taught that the memory of love is the soul's passport to higher realms. Therefore, near the end, the human heart returns to love with the simplicity and truth of a child. The complexities of the ego dissolve, and what remains is pure essence, the capacity to love unconditionally, to forgive without judgment, to be grateful for the journey despite all its difficulties. If you notice that your memories are shifting, that the distant past is clearer than the recent one, that you feel a need for reconciliation and forgiveness, understand that your soul is making its final arrangements. It is selecting only what has eternal value, preparing the baggage for a journey that does not allow unnecessary weight. There comes a point in the spiritual journey when a person begins to see God in everything. The leaf falling from the tree is no longer just a leaf. It is a divine poem about cycles and renewal. The bird's song at dawn is no longer just a sound. It is a prayer that touches the soul. The sunlight piercing through the clouds is no longer just an atmospheric phenomenon. It is the visible manifestation of divine love illuminating creation. As the soul prepares to depart, it begins to recognize its true nature in all that exists. The separation between the observer and the observed dissolves. The person feels that they are not merely looking at nature, but that they are part of it, which they always have been. There is a silent communion with all the elements: earth, water, air, fire. Each of them speaks an ancient language that the heart suddenly understands. Edgar Cayce described this phenomenon as the awakening of the consciousness of unity. The soul, which throughout its incarnation has felt separate and isolated in an individual body, finally begins to remember that it is part of an indivisible whole. Everything is connected by an invisible web of divine energy, and this connection becomes palpable, real, impossible to ignore. A deep desire arises to be outdoors, to feel the wind on one's face, to touch the earth with one's hands, to observe the movement of the waters. It's not necessary to do anything, just to be present. Presence becomes enough. There is a constant gratitude that springs spontaneously from the heart, not as a mental effort, but as a natural response to the beauty and perfection of all that exists. Even the simplest things take on a transcendent meaning. An ant carrying a leaf becomes a demonstration of purpose and determination that moves one to tears. A blooming flower reveals the mystery of life eternally renewing itself. The cycle of day and night becomes a constant reminder that everything has its time, its season, its moment to be and not to be. This state of silent worship is a clear indication that the spirit is already vibrating on a higher plane, where separateness is recognized as illusion and unity as truth. The person who experiences this no longer needs proof of God's existence, because they see divinity manifested in every atom of creation. Nature becomes a living temple, and every moment outdoors a sacred ceremony. If you have felt this heightened connection with nature, if tears come easily when contemplating the beauty of the world, if there is a deep gratitude for things that previously went unnoticed, understand that your soul is remembering its true origin. It is recognizing that it was never separate from the whole, and that it will soon consciously return to this complete union. The veil between worlds begins to thin. What was once solid and impenetrable becomes translucent, permeable. People close to the final transition report experiences that defy material logic, seeing inexplicable lights, hearing soft voices calling their names, feeling benevolent presences around them, especially at night. These are not hallucinations or products of a weakened mind. They are real perceptions of dimensions that have always been there, but which are now becoming accessible to expanded consciousness. Edgar Cayce asserted with conviction that spiritual guides approach before the transition to prepare the spirit for its return. They are beings of light who have loved that soul in other lives, guardian angels who have accompanied the entire earthly journey, ascended masters who come to offer comfort and guidance. They do not appear to frighten, but to reassure, to remind that the crossing will not be made alone. Often these presences manifest as a feeling of not being alone in the room, even when visibly there is no one there. It is a profound recognition that there is loving companionship, that invisible hands are outstretched, ready to hold and guide. Some feel a gentle touch on their shoulder or face, others hear comforting whispers, words that soothe the heart without it being possible to identify exactly what was said. Lights are another common phenomenon. Small luminous points floating in the air, sudden flashes of white or golden light, a soft luminosity that fills the environment without an apparent source. According to Cayce, these luminous manifestations are the materialization of the energy of spiritual guides, trying to make themselves perceived by the consciousness, still partially anchored in the physical. It is the light from the other side, beginning to bleed through the fissures of the veil. There are also visits from deceased loved ones that appear not in dreams, but during waking hours. The person is awake, lucid, and suddenly sees a departed family member standing there, smiling, radiating peace. These visits are brief, but profoundly real. They serve to show that death has not destroyed the bond of love, that true relationships transcend physical separation, that there will be a reunion. To an outside observer, these experiences may seem like mental confusion or delirium. But for those who live them, there is absolute clarity. It is not a loss of contact with reality, but an expansion of perception to include vaster realities. The invisible world reveals itself to the awakened consciousness, and this revelation brings not fear, but profound relief and confidence. If you or someone close to you is having these experiences, don't dismiss them as impossible or pathological. Open your heart to the possibility that worlds are touching, that heaven is drawing closer to earth, that the transition has already begun on subtle levels. These presences come with love, with purpose, with the sacred mission of facilitating the passage and ensuring that no one crosses the portal alone. There comes a point when an individual simply stops caring about things that once seemed essential. Material possessions lose all meaning. The big house, the new car, the designer clothes, the bank account, the jewelry, the valuables, all of this reveals itself for what it truly is: mere illusion, unnecessary burden, a temporary distraction from the essential truth. Edgar Cayce taught that when the soul approaches transition, it begins to see beyond the veil of matter. What was once solid and important becomes transparent and irrelevant. The person perceives with crystal clarity that nothing they have accumulated can cross the threshold of death. There is no way to take material possessions to the other side. This understanding does not bring sadness, but a profound liberation. Social status completely loses its power. The opinions of others, which previously might have caused anxiety or pride, become utterly insignificant. The need for external approval simply vanishes. There is an extraordinary freedom in no longer needing to impress anyone, in not having to keep up appearances, in being able to simply be who you are, stripped of all social masks. Even physical appearance ceases to matter. The person who previously worried about wrinkles, weight, and grey hair suddenly no longer sees the point in that concern. The body is recognized as the temporary vehicle it always was, and there is no longer a deep identification with it. There is a serene acceptance of aging and physical deterioration because consciousness no longer resides there with the same intensity. A natural impulse arises to give, to distribute, to part with possessions, not out of obligation or to follow spiritual rules, but because there is a genuine recognition that these things are no longer useful. The soul wants to put everything in order, wants its belongings to serve those who are still on their earthly journey. There is a spontaneous generosity that springs from this profound understanding. What remains important is only love, true relationships, moments of genuine connection, experiences of shared compassion. The soul recognizes that these are the only true riches, the only currencies that have value in the economy of the spirit. Everything else was just scenery, and the scenery is being dismantled because the play has come to an end. Cayce said that this detachment is not forced renunciation nor artificial asceticism. It is the natural result of seeing the truth. When you clearly see that something has no real value, you simply no longer cling to it. It's that simple. And this simplicity brings immense lightness, a feeling of traveling with light baggage towards a luminous destination. This is perhaps the most profound and mysterious sign of all. There is a moment when an inexplicable peace, transcending all logical understanding, completely floods the being. It is not the peace that comes from the absence of problems or the achievement of goals. It is something much deeper. It is the peace of one who has recognized the fundamental truth of existence. Edgar Cayce called this the serenity of the liberated soul. It is a state in which the fear of death simply no longer exists, not because the person is denying reality or running away from it, but because they have seen through the illusion. Death is recognized for what it truly is, not an end, but a transformation, not a loss, but a transition, not a destruction, but a liberation. This peace remains even when there is physical pain. Even when the body suffers, the soul is in complete tranquility. It is as if consciousness has shifted to a higher vantage point, from where it can witness what happens on the physical plane without being consumed by it. There is a profound acceptance, not resigned, but luminous, of the process that is taking place. Earthly worries naturally dissolve. Anxieties about the future, which once dominated the mind, simply no longer make sense. There is no future to plan for in this world, and this, surprisingly, brings not anguish, but a profound relaxation. It's like finishing a long journey and finally being able to rest, knowing that the responsibility has been fulfilled, that everything is all right. There is also a luminous certainty that comes not from blind faith nor desperate hope, but from direct knowledge. One simply knows that life is eternal, that consciousness cannot be destroyed, that on the other side there is love, light, and continuity. This knowledge is not intellectual, but experiential. The soul is touching the truth directly, without intermediaries. Those observing from the outside are impressed. How is it possible to be so at peace in the face of death? How can there be light in the eyes of someone who is departing? The answer is that this person has already begun to cross the threshold. Part of them is already on the other side, experiencing the reality beyond the veil. And what they find there is not darkness or emptiness, but a fullness beyond description. Cayce taught that this final peace is the sign that the soul has completed its earthly lesson. It has learned what it came to learn. It has loved as it came to love. It has forgiven as it needed to forgive. And now it is ready to graduate, to ascend, to return to the source from whence it came. There is no reason for resistance or fear. There is only confident surrender to the invisible arms that have always been there, sustaining everything from the beginning. If you feel this peace, even in the midst of the storm, know that your soul is already crossing the portal between the physical and the divine. You are being embraced by eternity, being reminded of who you truly are. Not this temporary body, but an immortal spark of divine consciousness, returning home after a long and courageous journey in matter. We've reached the 8th sign, and perhaps you're feeling something profound stirring in your heart. Before we move on to the final 9th sign, I'd like to invite you to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear these words. Sometimes, a message like this arrives at the exact moment someone needs comfort and understanding about the mysteries of life and death. The final sign is also the most beautiful. There comes a moment when gratitude ceases to be an occasional feeling and becomes a permanent state of consciousness. The person nearing the final transition looks back at the entire journey and feels overwhelming gratitude for everything that has happened. Not just for the good things, but for everything. For the joys and the sorrows, for the triumphs and the defeats, for the encounters and the farewells. Edgar Cayce explained that this total gratitude arises when the soul finally manages to see the greater purpose behind each experience. Everything made sense. Everything had a reason for being. Every person who crossed the path was a teacher. Every challenge was an opportunity for growth. Every tear watered the garden of wisdom. And now, from the expanded perspective of one who is about to depart, the entire journey reveals itself as a perfect design, a divine plan executed with loving precision. There is gratitude for relationships, even those that ended badly. The soul recognizes that every human connection, regardless of how it ended, was an opportunity to learn about love, boundaries, forgiveness, and compassion. Even those who hurt us were, in their own way, teachers who forced us to develop strength and wisdom. And for that, they also deserve gratitude. There is gratitude for the physical body that has faithfully served for decades, for every heartbeat, every breath, every movement. This marvelous vehicle allowed the soul to experience material life, to touch, feel, taste, hear, see. Without it, it would not have been possible to learn the lessons we came to learn. And now that the time is approaching to leave it, there is a respectful and loving recognition of its tireless dedication. There is gratitude for the Earth itself, this blue planet that welcomed us, nourished us, challenged us, and taught us. For the beauty of nature, for the cycles of the seasons, for the infinite generosity of Gaia, the soul bids farewell with love to this sacred garden where it lived its human experience, knowing that although it is departing, the connection with the Earth will remain eternally engraved in its essence. More profoundly, there is gratitude for the very gift of life, for having had the opportunity to exist, to be, to participate in the great cosmic dance of creation, for having been chosen to incarnate, to experience the density and beauty of material existence. Even if life has been difficult, even if there has been suffering, the soul recognizes that it was an extraordinary privilege to be alive. And finally, there is immense gratitude directed towards the Creator, the Source God. A profound recognition that she was never alone, that she was always loved unconditionally, that each step was accompanied and sustained by a divine presence that she never abandoned. This gratitude is not a religious obligation, but a spontaneous response from the heart that recognizes the infinite love that has always been there, in every moment, in every breath, in every experience. Cayce said that when the soul reaches this state of total gratitude, it is ready to return home. Gratitude is the ticket to the higher realms because it is the emotion that most closely resembles the divine vibration. Gratitude is love in action. It is recognition of perfection in everything. It is complete acceptance of the journey exactly as it was. And in this recognition, in this acceptance, the soul is completely freed and can ascend without anything holding it back. If you feel this profound gratitude, if you look at your life and can be thankful even for the most difficult moments, if there is a recognition that everything was exactly as it should have been, know that your soul has reached spiritual maturity. You are ready, ready for whatever comes next, ready for the great adventure that awaits beyond the veil, ready to return home with a full heart and a peaceful conscience. If any of these 9 signs resonated deeply in your heart, perhaps your soul is simply reminding you of a fundamental truth. Life is eternal, and death is merely an illusion created by the limited perception of matter. There is no reason to fear what is, in fact, liberation. There is no reason to resist what is a natural return to the divine origin. Edgar Cayce dedicated his life to reminding us of this simple and profound truth. Death is merely the soul returning home after a temporary journey in a temporary body. Each of us, at some point, will make this crossing, and when that moment arrives, we will not be alone. We will be welcomed by those who loved us and departed before, guided by beings of light who never abandoned us, embraced by the infinite presence of divine love. On the other side, there is no darkness, but light beyond light. There is no end, but glorious continuity. There is no loss, but a reunion with all that we have always been. May these words bring comfort to your heart and courage to your soul. Death is not the opposite of life. It is part of it. Its natural and perfect conclusion, the moment when we finally remember who we always were, eternal sparks of divine consciousness, temporarily exploring the human experience. If this video touched your soul in any way, please like it, so we can reach more people who need to hear this message of hope and understanding. Write in the comments, "My soul is at peace," and share this content with someone who is going through a difficult time, or who needs to understand that the end is not really an end, but only a new beginning in a higher dimension of existence. See you in the next chapter of this spiritual journey. May divine light always illuminate your path, both in this world and in all worlds to come.